Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I'll be taking a deep look at the midfielders in FPL this season, breaking them down by price point and categorizing them to figure out which ones are going to make the best FPL picks. This is the latest in a series of deep dives across positions. So if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like, hit subscribe, but importantly, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the other deep dives that I'm going to be doing over the next few days. Right then, so starting off with the most expensive midfielders, the premiums, 10 million plus. Salah first up, 14.5 million. I think it's a fair price, although it's not putting off a lot of managers because he's owned by over half the game already, 57% ownership. Obviously, it was a record-breaking year for him. Is it likely that he breaks it yet again or gets closer to it again? I would argue probably not. I don't think it's very often that you'd see a player going back to back with this sort of data, especially this sort of output as well. He got very good underlying XG/XA data, but he still massively overperformed that when it comes to the attacking returns that he put up. With Ekitike, with Florian Wirtz, with Alexander Isak potentially coming in as well, although I think Liverpool will be a better attacking units, are they going to get enough extra goals that it won't come to the detriment of Salah's goal share overall? He's obviously going to still get a large percentage of the goals that Liverpool get and assists, of course, but with so many good attackers coming in, is it likely that he matches this season? I would argue probably not. Does that mean he's not going to be good value for money at 14.5 million? No, he could still be a great FPL pick. He's still in my game week 1 draft as well. But all I would say here is that at least explore the possibility that he might not be as good an option this season, and therefore look at the other alternative universes like a Haaland draft, like maybe a no premium draft as well, or if Alexander Isak signs as well, just as a footnote, maybe you could look at a Liverpool draft where you've got Alexander Isak and Wirtz instead of Salah. And I know cover isn't a thing, but they will take goal share at Liverpool. They will get a fair few attacking returns. So maybe there's a world where you can go without the 14.5 million midfielder for Liverpool, save a bit of money and maybe distribute that around your 11 and still have a lot of the Liverpool goal share covered off with Isak and Wirtz, for example. I know it doesn't work as an exact science, but you can still get a fair percentage of Liverpool's goals that way. Now, for what it's worth, I've still got Salah. I think he's a fantastic pick. Even at 14.5 million, I think he is a player worth owning. And I think he's a captain often enough in the first few game weeks that he is someone that I want to include. But I don't want to lock myself out of those alternative drafts and looking at the different angles, different possibilities to solving this game this year. And it's not outlandish to think that he might drop off a little bit. With Haaland, we were saying this at the start of last season as well, by the way. We were saying he's absolutely essential at whatever price, just own him. He's going to keep ticking along at that rate. And then he started off like a freight train. He was ridiculous and then dropped off. Even before the injury, he dropped off. So these things can happen. So just be open to those possibilities, I suppose. That being said, he's in my game week 1 draft at the moment, and I think he's going to be fantastic, even if he does drop off a little bit. Palmer and Saka, let's talk about together. I think it's one or the other for me to begin with, because if I own both, and it is possible to own both alongside Salah as well, but if I do, I start sacrificing money elsewhere, especially in defense, where I think there's a lot of value this season in the slightly more expensive picks. I think those 6 million defenders, 5.5 million defenders are worth it. So I'm happy to spend an extra little bit of money there. If I spent that much money on 3 midfielders and had Saka alongside Palmer, one, I can only captain one of these 3 every single week. So maybe I'm wasting funds a little bit. And 2, with Saka, I'm not loving the opening stretch of fixtures. So Man United and Leeds are good, especially Leeds in game week 2 as a standout captaincy option. But after that, it's not a great run. With Palmer, I think he's got penalties. He's got 90 minutes a match. He's got better goal threat than Saka and better fixtures for the first few as well. So I think Palmer slightly beats Saka in my estimations, but there are certain worlds in which Saka is a better pick. Now, for example, if you're free hitting in game week 3, where they go up against Liverpool, or if you're free hitting in game weeks 5 or 6, where they go up against Man City or Newcastle, then Saka's and Arsenal's fixtures as a run don't look quite so bad. And actually, if you're looking at wildcarding around game week 13, between, they've got a great run as a stretch all the way through there if you can take out one or two of their poorer opening fixtures with a free hit. So Saka's not a bad pick. I think the other thing with Saka is, although he does still currently take penalties for Arsenal, due to the signing of Gyökeres, I'd be very worried about whether or not he takes the next few. I think that Gyökeres is very likely to take penalties off of him. Saka has always shared around penalties with Ødegaard anyway. I think it's pretty likely that Saka loses them. And if that's the case, his XG goes down a little bit. He's still a very good pick, even at 10 million. But Palmer, even at 0.5 million more, I think the fixtures are there, the points per game are there, the XG per 90 is better. He got more goals last season. Obviously, he wasn't injured as well, but he gets 90 minutes a match. And with the penalties, with set pieces, he is very talismanic, and that's not changing with any of the signings that Chelsea are making. With Arsenal, because they've signed Gyökeres, I think there's enough shifting plates there that Saka might just become slightly worse as an FPL option. That being said, he's still going to be great at times this season. And if you're free hitting in a week where Arsenal have a poor fixture like Liverpool, Man City or Newcastle, there is definitely an argument to still go there from the off. For me, though, I still think Palmer slightly beats him to start the season. So dropping down a price bracket to the 8 to 9 million midfielders, we've got 3 Man United assets in here, although the kits haven't been updated for Mbeumo or Cunha. Let's talk about all of them to begin with, because that's a really interesting combination to consider. Unfortunately, the start to the season isn't looking too great. They've got Arsenal in game week 1, Man City in game week 4. They do have Burnley in between, so maybe there's an argument that you could possibly even free hit in game week 3, or look at a way of benching one of them or something crazy like that. But I think most people are probably going to wait and see on these assets. Although saying that, 10% for Bruno, 13% for Cunha, and 20% for Mbeumo proves that there is some ownership share for Man United players. I think out of the 3, I still prefer Bruno. The reason for that is I think that with Cunha and Mbeumo in front of him, his assist threat, although very high anyway, is probably going to go up another level this season because he's got better players that he's providing service to. And I think he probably does keep penalties. Now, the problem is I can't guarantee that. And because I can't guarantee that, if Cunha or Mbeumo come in and just take penalties off of him, or Fernandes is just maybe charitable with them and gives them to one of the other two at some point, then it ruins Bruno a little bit as an FPL asset. So at 9 million, you do kind of want penalties to make him good enough to be picking reliably. But he still got 20 attacking returns last season in a really struggling side. I expect him to get slightly more than that this season with better players around him, especially if they can sign a striker, by the way. They're in for Šeško and Ollie Watkins at time of recording. If they can sign either one of them, then I think Bruno goes up again in my estimations. But although I think he's a very good pick, I still think the start of the season is poor enough that maybe I just wait and see what Man United shape up like, whether he still does take penalties instead of Mbeumo or Cunha. And if he does, then I think at that price, he's still very, very good value for money, especially when you account for the fact that defensive contributions added in this season give him a pretty major and substantial bump over some of the other players at this price point as well. So he's a bit more expensive, but I've still got a sneaky feeling that he's going to be a very interesting player at times this season, just maybe not straight away, and just maybe after we've got a little bit more data on Man United. And Mbeumo and Cunha, I think because we don't know they take penalties and because they both were quite reliant on penalties last season, I would probably swerve them to begin with. Again, because of the fixtures being not that great, it's a nice excuse to maybe just give them a watching brief. If either of them take penalties off of Bruno, then they could be the pick. But because we don't know which one will, and because they both significantly overperformed their underlying non-penalty XG last season anyway, I think for me, they're great players. I think they'll work really well at Man United. But whether or not they're great FPL picks is a slightly different case. And I'm not confident enough that they get close to these sort of points tallies yet that I'd pick them for game week 1. Moving across to Florian Wirtz, who's the most popular out of everyone on this spreadsheet. Over a third of the game own him. I can completely see why. Great underlying attacking data in the Bundesliga. It is worth noting he took penalties last season. He took 4 of them, which obviously boosts his XG per 90 by a relatively substantial margin. He only scored 2 of them though. And I think it's far-fetched to assume that he takes them off of Salah. Salah is definitely going to be taking them for Liverpool this season. So he kind of loses that weapon in his locker. So whether or not he can match exactly what he did at Leverkusen, I'm not sure, but I still think he's going to be a very good pick. I'm tempted to include him from the off. Although the first few fixtures don't look that great, I still think at 8.5, he's cheap enough that you could include him from game week 1 and be pretty happy with that. The other thing to note is, although he only got 22 attacking returns last season, he also didn't start every single game. I think he started something like 25, 26 matches. So he's running at almost an attacking return a game last season in the Bundesliga. So he could be a bit of a cheat code. But with the first few fixtures in mind, with the fact that he did overperform the attacking data and without penalties as well, he's a player that I'm very on the fence about starting off with, or maybe just moving across to him after Newcastle and Arsenal are out the way, and we see exactly how Liverpool shape up and exactly which position Wirtz plays, because that's another key factor here. If he plays out of position up front or on the left wing, then he's an even better pick. But I think it's more likely that he plays in that CAM role and maybe doesn't get quite the attacking return level that you'd want for an 8.5 million midfielder. That being said, still a great pick. And I think players who go with him from the off will probably get rewarded. I'm still 50-50 whether or not I'm including him in my game week 1 draft. Moving down, I think we can talk about Son, Ødegaard and Foden kind of all together as one. Son, I just don't think will get the minutes. He's likely to even not be in a Spurs shirt come the start of the season. So I think we can probably discount him. Ødegaard, I'm discounting as well, because although the underlying attacking data is not bad, at this price point, as you can see, there are players who get much better attacking data than him. He was carrying a bit of an injury last season, so it might skew upwards again, and he does usually get very good minutes. But I would want to wait and see on that. I don't think he's a player. He's not in my top 3 Arsenal picks, put it that way. I'd have Saka ahead of him. I'd probably have Declan Rice ahead of him at the price point he's at as well. Gyökeres, a couple of Arsenal defenders, maybe even arguably David Raya as well. All good picks. So Ødegaard at 8.5, I'm not that interested in, at least to start with. If he starts getting more attacking returns, then I'm obviously open to changing my mind. Foden, I've got a good gut feeling about this season, and I think he probably does much better this year than he did last, and good underlying data in what was a very quiet season for him last time out as well. But again, I think it's a wait and see. They've got so many options in midfield and in attack that it's just not worth the risk at 8 million for me on the minutes to go with Foden from the off. Like I said, I've got a good gut feeling about him, and I think that it's wise to have this price point covered off so that you can move to one of these players, whether it's Foden, Mbeumo, Cunha, Marmoush even as well. All of these options could be good, but I just want to know that they get the minutes, especially in Foden's case, before I go there. So for me, I'm going to wait and see. Finally, on Marmoush, 8.5 I think is fair. Being classified as a midfielder, I think is maybe a touch lucky for FPL managers, considering that underlying XG data. And if Haaland ever gets injured, I think he's straight into all of our teams. I'm just not 100% sold that he plays every single minute, every single game. He won't take penalties. I don't think he's a bad pick. I think he's one of my preferred ones on this spreadsheet. But at 8.5, you've got to be very confident on the position, on the minutes. Maybe you'd want him to be taking penalties or at least some set pieces. And I just don't think he ticks enough of those boxes for me to reliably pick him from the off. If you want to take a gamble on him, that's fair enough. That data is very, very good. On this spreadsheet, I think right now, Wirtz is probably my favourite. And then Bruno, when the fixtures turn, would probably come in very close to Wirtz as well. But none of these picks I'm that confident going with from the off. So I might just try and have this price point covered off with a more expensive option, like having 2 premiums. And then I can move down to them pretty easily if I need to, because some of these options could be game breakers if 1 or 2 little aspects are ticked off in the first few game weeks. Right, so moving on to the 7 to 7.5 million midfielders. Again, apologies if some of your favourites aren't on this spreadsheet. I just don't want this video to be 3 hours long, so it's nothing against them, but I've picked out a few of my favourites to begin with. 7.5 millions in isolation. Gakpo, I think, could be a good option. One I'm not interested in at the start of the season because Liverpool, quite frankly, have just such a good front line now that I can't guarantee that he gets north of 70, 80 minutes a match. He might start the season at left wing. He might get decent minutes, but I just need that reliable guarantee of minutes week in, week out for a player like him before going there. The underlying data is good. So if he can lock in left wing and get 80 to 90 minutes every single week, and you could tell me that he's going to play every game, then that's fair enough. And I would go there at that point. But because they're signing so many great players, because they've got such an elite front line, I don't personally think I can guarantee it just yet. So it's a wait and see for me. Eberechi Eze is a player I'm very interested in if he stays at Crystal Palace. Obviously, Arsenal are hovering around trying to sign him at the moment. If he goes to Arsenal, then this all completely changes. But at Crystal Palace, even with a slightly poor start to the season in those first 3 game weeks, I still back him to be one of the top scoring midfielders at this price point. And you just know what you're getting from him. He's got penalty share, he's got set pieces, he's got great underlying attacking data with a surprisingly good level of XG per 90 as well. And he's still pretty differential at under 10% ownership. So he's my favourite 7.5 million option right now if he stays at Crystal Palace. But obviously, if he goes to Arsenal, he could be an even better FPL asset, but maybe not to begin with as he beds into the side. Moving down to the 7 million options, I like both of the Bournemouth midfielders. Actually really good underlying attacking data, especially for Kluivert because he's got that penalty share. Semenyo's a little bit poorer, but if you take out Kluivert's penalties, then Semenyo actually matches him really well, both of which were great FPL options at times last season. And if you take that Liverpool game out in game week 1, they've got a great run of fixtures through to about game week 8 or 9. So don't sleep on them. They've got better goal threat than a Rodgers, and they can explode as well. 11 goals, 12 goals for Kluivert, 11 for Semenyo. Not bad whatsoever at 7 million. So although they've both had a little bit of a price bump, I wouldn't be just overlooking them automatically. They've got slightly higher points per game than Rodgers too. So again, if Rodgers seems like a little bit of a template pick and you're not convinced, then may I offer you the likes of Kluivert or Semenyo. Talking about Rodgers though, I do really like him as a pick. I think there's a good reason that he's up at 20% ownership. Got 19 attacking returns last season, which was an overperformance, but for such a young player, to get that many minutes last season, 90 minutes almost week in, week out, get that level of reliability, even with slightly poorer underlying attacking data, I think I'd still prefer that over most players at this price point. I also think that the underlying attacking data is likely to improve a bit this season as well. And again, although that game week 1 fixture might not look that great on paper, after that, they've got a great stretch of fixtures all the way through to something like game week 10 or 11. So Rodgers is popular for good reason. The data suggests he overperformed, but I think the data is going to improve this season. And that's just a subjective point of view. But even at 7 million, I think the price bump is warranted. And I think he's still going to provide good value for money this season, considering he is that nailed on for minutes. 90 minutes a match is so important in FPL. That extra 10 or 20% in terms of game time that you get can really help you to become an elite FPL asset over the likes of someone who might only get 60 to 70 minutes. Moving down, you've got a few other decent options. You've got Kevin Schade at Brentford. Obviously good attacking returns last season, not bad data, but without Mbeumo there, without Norgard, I just don't know how good Brentford are going to be. He's likely to maybe take up a more talismanic role though. So again, at 7 million, not a bad option to be going for. Neto, I probably wouldn't go there myself. The underlying data is not good enough that I'd take a punt on the minutes. I think most Chelsea fans would say that he is in their best starting 11, but they've got so many good options that I feel like he does rotate every now and then, probably not going to get 90 minutes, and he doesn't ever get that many attacking returns either. So for me, he's a wait and see. Elanga's the same, and I've missed out on all of the other Newcastle midfielders at all price points here. So you've got Gordon, you've got Murphy, you've got Harvey Barnes as well, all good options at times. So Elanga is more of just a Newcastle example here. But because there are so many of them on both wings, I just don't know where the minutes are going to go. And because I think the minutes are going to be shared, or at least I can't reliably and confidently predict who is going to start every single match, it kind of makes all of them non-options to begin with. Until we know that one of them is guaranteed to get 80 or 90, I'm probably not going to go there. The first two fixtures aren't great either. So it's probably a nice way to wait and see. And by the time we get to game weeks 3, 4, 5, then maybe we've got a little bit more confidence on which the starting players are going to be and which players are going to get taken off early. Johnson, quite similar. We just don't know who's going to be in that preferred lineup for Spurs. I thought I'd mention him quickly because he got very good XG per 90 data, 0.45 last season. So if he is nailed down, he could be a fantastic option, playing in maybe a similar role to Mbeumo at Brentford did last season under Thomas Frank. So Johnson, keep an eye out at 7 million. Not a great price for him considering he's not nailed for minutes. But like I said, just keep an eye out for him because with that sort of underlying data, if Frank can get the best out of him and he does get locked into that starting lineup, he could be, again, a very good option at this price. Right, onto the 6.5 million midfielders, a really interesting category with a lot of different things to think about. You've got some with defensive contributions, you've got some without any, but also with a lot greater attacking threat. And there are just so many 6.5 million midfielders. I'm not going to be able to talk about every single one of them. I fit, 9 on my spreadsheet today, but there are loads more that could arguably be considered at times this season. Declan Rice comes out pretty well across both metrics. Not bad on the underlying attacking data, 0.29 in combination. Got 11 attacking returns last season, and we know that he's nailed in to start. Adding in the defensive contribution points, as we've seen on the right-hand side here, I've added that column for midfielders 6.5 million below because they're more likely to get them. He adds 18 points on top, taking him to 145 in total. That's not bad at all. And it actually puts him exactly level with the likes of Mitoma, slightly ahead of Enzo, pretty much level with an Ismaila Sarr, who would have gotten no defensive contributions, but he got 15 attacking returns last season. So on less attacking returns, because of the defensive contributions, Declan Rice is now as good, if not slightly better than some of the midfielders who historically do get way more attacking returns, much better goal threat, but don't really do much defensive work. So we need to maybe shift our thinking, shift our perspective when it comes to this price point of midfielders. And when we look below this as well at the 6, there's 5.5 million midfielders too. So I do like Declan Rice because he's nailed, because he's on some set pieces. Obviously, we saw those 2 free kicks in the Champions League. So he does have some goal threat. Mitoma don't completely discount. He does get a fair few goals. Underlying XG per 90 is really good, especially at this price point. The same goes for Ismaila Sarr at 0.36. By far the best on this spreadsheet in terms of attacking data overall. Also has the best XA per 90. So don't sleep on Ismaila Sarr. Although he gets no defensive contribution points, that doesn't all of a sudden make him a bad option. And if you want to save $1 million from an Eberechi Eze, you get just as much, if not very slightly better attacking data. The problem is he has been historically underperforming against that. So he got 15 attacking returns last season. If he can match the attacking returns to the underlying data, he could be a cheat code, but that is still the question yet to be answered. Moving down, Ndiaye is currently in my side, and 9 goals last season, no assists. And looking at the underlying attacking data, it's nothing to really shout home about, but he does get a fair few points from goals from attacking returns anyway. He would have been one of the only forwards last season who got any defensive contribution points last season at all. And even as a midfielder, he's still better than most people on this spreadsheet. So if he can match that this season, add a few more attacking contributions, I think Everton are a team on the up. He's got penalties, he's got good minutes as well. I think, again, he could be a very good pick. And he's currently in my game week 1 side, partly because of the opening run of fixtures, but also because he ticks all the boxes I look for in an FPL asset. Moving down, Iwobi, I think, maybe overperformed last season a little bit, 15 attacking returns. He got 156 points, would have gotten an extra 2 with defensive contributions. I don't expect him to match it, but he's never a bad pick. Rodri, I've used the season before last data because last season he was injured. I think this needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. He would have gotten 18 attacking returns that season. So obviously 10 assists, 8 goals. Not great underlying attacking data, it must be said, so he did overperform. But if you take those points, add in the defensive contributions he would have gotten very close to a 200-point haul as a 6.5 million option. So Rodri, if he starts the season as a nailed 90-minute man, and he can get anywhere near to this sort of attacking output, he could be a massive cheat code above the likes of Declan Rice, above the likes of Ismaila Sarr. But I do expect this to take a little bit of a dive. I don't expect this sort of attacking output, and he might not be quite as nailed on minutes because of the injury he had last season. So one to maybe keep an eye on, but if he does start getting 90 minutes week in, week out, then he could be the cheat code that we're all looking for at this price point, because he kind of gets enough attacking returns plus enough defensive contributions to become an elite FPL asset at this price point. Although it's hard to know when those attacking returns are going to come with Rodri. He will drip feed you points throughout the season and be a very reliable asset. Finally, you've got Ahmad and Kudus. Ahmad, I'm not going to talk about too much because that start to the season isn't really that great. So you're likely not going to be picking too many Man United assets. And he's likely to be playing right wing back this season. Maybe in combination. So down that right wing with Mbeumo, they might swap positions every now and then. But likely that he's not going to be a great FPL option to begin with. Maybe throughout the season that changes. Kudus is a player I've got my eye on. The underlying attacking data isn't amazing, so I'm probably going to just wait and see on him. But a great game week 1 fixture if you're not brave enough to go there, but if you're convinced enough that he gets the minutes in game week 1, then that's fair enough. And I would expect the underlying attacking data to improve at Spurs. They've paid a big fee. He should get good minutes, but for me, there are still enough question marks surrounding him and where he fits into the team, what his underlying attacking data might look like. And the fact that he doesn't get many defensive contribution points either means that there are maybe safer picks in this spreadsheet and at cheaper price points that I can rely on that are nailed for minutes to begin with and will have penalties like an Ndiaye as well, for example. So for now, I'm going to leave Kudus to one side, I think, and maybe come back to him in a few game weeks' time. Even if he rises in price, even if he gets off to a good start against Burnley, I don't think I'm going to miss out too much. And there are enough risks surrounding him that I think it's worth waiting and holding off for now. Obviously, 27.5% of the game disagree with that point, and that is fair enough. So a lot of people are obviously going to probably think that I'm wrong here, but I personally think it's worth just waiting on Kudus. So moving on to the 6 million midfielders, and I have to say, out of all of the different categories we're talking about, this is probably the one where I'm struggling the most to recommend one for a game week 1 side. You can see that by the percentage ownership as well. They're all under 3% ownership. Hudson-Odoi at 2.3 is the highest. So all incredibly differential. And although I don't love any of them, I'm probably not going to pick any of them in my team necessarily at this price point, I think there are still decent options to consider. So Tielemans might be the most interesting for me. He got 10 attacking returns last season, 0.27 XGI per 90. And obviously got great minutes. He also gets a fair few defensive contribution points. 18 is the best out of everyone here. And he might well get penalties this season for Villa. Now, that is kind of up in the air at the moment. We don't know for sure which way it's going. But Tielemans looks as likely as anyone to get them. So at 6 million, you might have a pretty nailed on penalty taker. And if that's the case, that could be a really cheap differential midfielder with good upside. However, because we're not fully confident on that, I probably wouldn't be highly recommending him just yet. Damsgaard got 12 attacking contributions last season. Not bad underlying data and got the most points out of everyone here. Not as bad as I thought he would be on the defensive contribution. So he reached it in 7 games, getting 14 defensive contributions, meaning that overall he would have gotten 145 points. Now, at 6 million, that's really not that bad. I think the only problem there is that Brentford have lost Mbeumo, they've lost Norgard, they've obviously changed managers. So do we expect him to improve this season? Do we expect them to regress as a team and therefore Damsgaard too? I think it's just quite up in the air. So I'm not massively confident in recommending him either. And when we get to the next section, you'll see that there are a number of midfielders that are cheaper than this that would have gotten very close to that points total anyway at a cheaper price point. So moving on to the two Brighton midfielders, Ruta and Minte, both got 11 attacking contributions. And actually, the data's not looking too bad. Ruta obviously getting the best XG per 90 of anyone in this category. And in combination, Minte comes out on top of everyone looking at the XGI, so the combination of assist and goal threat. I think the problem with them is the minutes aren't completely locked in and the starting fixtures aren't superb either. But I think at times this season, they can both be good options, especially Ruta if he starts nailing down that spot and getting better minutes. And without João Pedro in the lineup, I think he is likely to get better minutes as well. So keep an eye out for Ruta. I think he could be one that at some point this season, we're going to all have an eye on. Minte, we know is a good option. We know at times he can be explosive. We just need to see that guarantee of minutes. And again, without Adingra in the side, because he's also gone, Minte might get a little bit of a bump in terms of the underlying minutes. So keep an eye out for both of them. But right now, I probably wouldn't highly recommend them because of the opening fixtures as well. McNeil has been spoken about a bit, got 12 attacking returns, same as Damsgaard. Good underlying XA data, but very low on the XG data, which brings it down a little notch. Doesn't get many defensive contribution points. And although he got decent minutes, still would have gotten under 100 points last season. I quite like the start to the season they've got with Leeds up first, then Brighton, and then Wolves after that, also not bad. But I think I would be more tempted to spend the extra 0.5 on an Ndai rather than saving the 0.5, missing out on the penalties, missing out on the extra goal threat, and going with McNeil. That's just a personal opinion. McNeil's a very talented footballer, and I've seen quite a few Everton fans talking him up. So don't let me put you off of him if you want to go there, but he's probably not a player that suits what I want to do in FPL. Hudson-Odoi is the highest owned out of these players at 2.3%. Again, that's very differential. But I'm surprised at how poor the underlying data is. 0.1 XG and 0.1 XA. So it's actually really poor for such a talented player. I'm very surprised it's this low. He got 8 attacking contributions last season. Doesn't get much on the defensive contributions either. So I think for me, I would have to see that underlying data significantly improve before I considered him to be a good FPL option. He's obviously very talented. At times he can be explosive, but even at this price point, I think I'd need something with a little bit more attacking output. And there's midfielders at cheaper than this who you wouldn't even consider to be attacking midfielders that have better underlying data than that as well. So for me, he's a wait and see. Souček, I don't mind. 9 goals and is used as a bit of a box crasher at times. Obviously goes up for set pieces, great in the air. So I think he might spike a return every now and then. If he was at 5.5 or below, I'd be more tempted. But that is a good game week 1 fixture against Sunderland. So if you're on a bench boost, I would understand going there. Outside of that, I think, again, at the cheaper price point, there might be options I'd prefer because he's not as high on the defensive contributions as I'd want him to be. And although he gets a fair few goals, they're not reliable returns. You never know when they're going to come. And they could just as easily come against an Arsenal as they could against a Burnley. So you're never going to be able to really predict when is the best time to play him as per the randomness of goals from set pieces. So Souček's a fairly difficult one to know when to start. But if you just had him on your bench every single week, it would work out pretty well over the season. Every now and then you might have to rely on him and he might spike you a goal. But because he's 6 million, that's quite a lot of money to spend on the bench. And at cheaper, you can get more bang for your buck, I think, at least. Right then, so finishing off with the cheapest midfielders, that is 5.5 million and under. I haven't found any 4.5 million midfielders that I would actually recommend and feel comfortable doing so to you at the moment. But if I've missed any, or you've got a preferred one, let me know in the comments below. There's always one that comes out of the woodwork in pre-season. I haven't seen one that I love just yet, but there are loads of 5 millions and 5.5 millions that I think are very good value for money, especially when taking into account the CBITR points, those defensive contribution points. Talking about the 5.5 million options first, Caicedo and Anderson jump off the page straight away. They've got a great amount of defensive contribution points. Caicedo, 42, was the most out of all midfielders last season, if they were added in, of course. And he is the most highly owned out of anyone on this particular spreadsheet. 7.6 5.6% ownership. He's still fairly differential. And he would have gotten 140 points last season if those points had have been added in, 98 without, but almost no attacking threat. So whilst he is a much better option now, I still don't feel massively comfortable recommending him because he's only ever going to just tick along and he's never going to get that 1 week where he explodes a little bit, gets the attacking return. I mean, he got 5 of them last season, so it's not never. 1 in 7 or 8 game weeks maybe, but you're not expecting them. And especially if these players, these midfielders, are most likely to be your 5th midfielder. And if you're playing a 3-5-2, you need to rely on him week in, week out. If you're playing a 3-4-3, then it's coming off your bench every now and then. And Caicedo probably just doesn't have that level of excitement you'd want. And you just want to be able to hit the jackpot once in a while, once in a blue moon. So Caicedo, I don't mind. And he will tick along. 140 points across the season is not bad whatsoever. But there are preferred options here. So Anderson is my favourite by quite a distance as well. He got 8 attacking returns last season, better underlying data than Caicedo. And although he got less CBITR points, he got more points in total because of the attacking contributions he got. He also started less matches, but not necessarily through rotation. So I imagine if he can complete a full season, he's going to beat Caicedo by even more this year. So I prefer Anderson. He's under 2% ownership right now, so he's incredibly differential. And I think he might nab a few extra attacking returns this season as well. He's on corners. He used to share them with Elanga, and now Elanga's gone off to Newcastle. We might get more of them. He's also on some indirect free kicks. So if one of the defenders can get their head on something, then he might benefit from that, from the assist. So I think he's likely to at least match what he did last season, if not slightly beat it. And if he can get, what was that, 143 points with the CBITR points added in this season coming, and maybe just creep above that, get an attacking return or 2 more than last season, I think he's going to be a very good 5th midfielder to own. Either someone that you just consistently start, but I would personally prefer him being on my bench as that 5th midfielder in a 3-4-3, and he can come on and help you out whenever you need him. Reinders as well, I don't mind. He got a lot of attacking returns at AC Milan, 10 goals, so the highest on this spreadsheet. But I'm just not massively sold on the minutes yet. I think he will probably fit into Man City's strongest 11 eventually. He is a very talented player, but they've got a lot of very talented players. So I just want that guarantee of minutes first. But he could be a bit of a game breaker if he does get the minutes. So if you think he gets 90 minutes from the off and he plays every game, then 5.5 million is really, really cheap. I'm a little bit more cautious on it. And if I need to get there after a few weeks because he's starting every single match and because he's getting okay underlying attacking data, then I'm willing to pay 5.6, 5.7 million and just bite the bullet at that point. But I want that data first and I want to see how he fits in. Man City are only playing 1 pre-season game as well. So we're not going to get much reliable info in the pre-season. So for me, he's a wait and see. You've got a Dingra who does not get contribution points, but at Sunderland at 5.5 million, you would imagine he gets much better minutes than he did at Brighton. And the underlying attacking data for this price point is actually very solid. It's the highest out of everyone when you combine the two, XG and XA, by quite a distance as well. So I do like him, and he's probably the midfielder at this price point with the most attacking threat. So if you're willing to forego the contribution points, he's probably the way I would go. But on balance, I think at this price point, the contribution points come out on top. So I'd prefer to go with an Anderson, maybe a Joao Gomez as well at 5.5 million. Not great attacking threat, but he does pop up with a goal every now and then. And again, great on the contribution points too. If you think Wolves are going to be a good side this season, he should have a good season as well. After that, a quick look at the 5 million options. I like Baleba. I think he could have arguably been priced at 5.5 because he matches the sort of output of an Anderson or a Caicedo. If he gets good minutes, if he doesn't move from Brighton, then there has been a bit of transfer speculation there. If he doesn't move, 5 million, I think, is a very sensible option to be going for. Again, definitely a 5th midfielder on your bench most weeks. And in past seasons, that might have been a 4.5, but because he gets defensive contribution points, I think it is worth paying that 0.5 extra so that the weeks that you need to lean on him, maybe you've got an injury, maybe you've got a suspension, maybe there's rotation and he comes off the bench, he is slightly more likely to get a 4 or a 5 pointer than just your standard 2 or 3 points that you would have gotten with a 4.5 million option in previous seasons. So I do like Baleba. Wharton, again, just not a great attacking threat. He gets a few contribution points, but not as much as Baleba, so I probably wouldn't recommend him quite as highly, but he is a very talented footballer. Lefay at Sunderland, I've seen a lot of hype about him, but I don't think I could recommend him. That underlying attacking data just isn't as good as I'd want it to be. Even at 5 million, I'm still not fully sold on him. I've seen a few people using him as part of a bench boost in game week 1. I think that's understandable. He should play that cam role for Sunderland, but the data's not great. He only got a couple of attacking returns last season anyway. I don't think that he's the way I would be going for a 5 million midfielder right now. I'd prefer a Baleba, maybe a Ryan Christie as well at Bournemouth, who until recently wouldn't have been an option, but he got solid enough minutes last season. And given injuries at Bournemouth, he looks pretty nailed to start the season and get good minutes for the first few game weeks. He is very good on the defensive contribution points, would have gotten a lot more than this if he'd played every single match. So he could be an option that climbs to around the sort of level of an Anderson, maybe even above Anderson as well, considering that attacking data is ever so slightly better than Anderson's. If he gets the same minutes, then I think he could be a bit of a cut price gem too. So I think at 5.5, Anderson's my favourite. At 5, it's a tight contest between Baleba and Christie. I might slightly favour Baleba, but if Christie is nailed for a longer period of time, I'd probably go that way because he's got a little bit more attacking threat in combination. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, hit that notification bell because the next video up will be the defensive breakdown. So running through all of the defenders in FPL and figuring out which ones are best there. In the meantime, happy drafting and I'll see you next time.